selling a leasehold property and staring at yet another form? Take a breath, this one looks long, but we'll break it down together. Hey, welcome to Ask Quality Conveyancing, where we answer your most common property questions. In this video, we're walking you through how to complete the TA7 leasehold information form. This form is used when you're selling a leasehold property, like a flat or apartment, and it gives the buyer important information about the lease, ground rent, service charges, and how the building is managed. You're simply being asked to share what you know based on your ownership. Let's get started. First page covers property and seller details. Right at the start, you'll fill in the full property address and the full legal names of everyone selling the property. Make sure the names match the lease exactly, especially if there's more than one seller. If the seller is a company rather than an individual, there's a separate section to complete. Just follow the prompts on the form. You'll also add your solicitor's details if you have them at this stage. Once that's done, we move into the main sections. Section 1 covers the property. This section is about the type of leasehold property you're selling. You'll tick whether it's a flat or apartment, shared ownership, or a long leasehold house. Next, the form asks about ground rent. You'll confirm whether ground rent is payable, how much it is each year, how often it's paid, and whether it increases over time. If the rent does increase, don't worry, you're just being asked how it's reviewed. For example, does it double or increase in line with inflation like RPI or CPI? RPI, which stands for Retail Price Index, and CPI, which is Consumer Price Index, are both ways of measuring inflation, basically how the cost of living changes over time. So if your ground rent is linked to RPI or CPI, it usually means the rent increases gradually in line with inflation rather than jumping suddenly. You'll normally find this information written clearly in your lease. And if you're unsure, check the lease, or simply select Not Known and speak to your solicitor. Section 2 covers ownership and management. This section explains who owns and manages the building. You'll be asked who owns the freehold, whether there's a head lease, and who actually manages the building day to day. This could be the freeholder, a management company, or a right-to-manage company run by the leaseholders. You'll also confirm whether a managing agent is used to collect ground rent or service charges. If you're not sure who does what, that's very common. Just answer based on what you know, or tick Not Known. Section 3 covers relevant documents. This is a document checklist, not a test. You'll be asked to provide copies of things like the lease and any supplemental deeds, service charge and ground rent statements, buildings insurance details, and correspondence from the landlord or managing agent. If you already have these, attach them. If not, just select To Follow. Your solicitor can help obtain anything missing. If something doesn't apply to you, tick Not Applicable. Section 4 covers contact details. Here, you'll simply provide contact details for the landlord, the management company or right-to-manage company, and the managing agent, if there is one. This helps the buyer's solicitor know exactly who to contact later. So accuracy is helpful, but perfection isn't expected. Section 5 covers maintenance and service charges. This section is all about how the building is looked after and how those costs are shared between leaseholders. For a lot of sellers, this is the part that feels the most confusing, mainly because it involves service charges and building management. But don't worry, we'll take it step by step. The first question asks who arranges the building's insurance. This is usually the landlord or the management company. Occasionally, it may be arranged by the seller, but that's less common for flats. Just tick the option that applies. If you're unsure, your most recent service charge statement or insurance schedule usually makes this clear. Next, you'll be asked when the outside of the building was last decorated and when any internal communal areas like hallways or staircases were last decorated. You're not expected to remember exact dates here. A rough year is perfectly fine, and if you genuinely don't know, simply select Not Known. You'll then be asked whether you contribute to the cost of maintaining the building. In other words, whether you pay a service charge. If you tick No, you can skip ahead to the next section. If you tick Yes, there are a few follow-up questions, and these are really important for buyers, so take your time. The next question asks whether you're aware of any major or unusual expenses likely to appear in the service charge accounts over the next 3 years. This doesn't mean normal yearly costs. It's asking about bigger one-off items. For example, roof repairs, lift replacement, external redecoration, or major structural works. If you've been told about upcoming works, or it's been mentioned in meetings or letters, tick yes and briefly explain what you know. If you're not aware of anything planned, tick no. Next, you'll be asked whether you're aware of any problems in the last 3 years relating to the level of service charges or how the building has been managed. This could include things like unexpectedly high charges, delays in repairs, poor communication from managing agents. If there have been issues, give a short factual explanation. If not, simply tick no. You'll then be asked whether you formally challenged any service charges or expenses in the last 3 years. This might include disputing a charge, raising a formal complaint, or taking advice about whether a charge was reasonable. If you have challenged something, briefly explain what it is related to. If you haven't, just tick no. This next question is about building safety, including cladding or defects that could pose a risk. If you're aware of cladding on the building, fire safety defects, or any investigations or reports relating to safety, tick yes and share what you know. If you're not aware of any issues, tick no. Again, this is about disclosure, not assigning blame. You'll also be asked whether you're aware of any difficulties collecting service charges from other leaseholders in the building. This could include long-standing arrears, ongoing disputes, or financial issues affecting the building. If you're aware of problems, briefly explain. If not, tick no. Finally, you'll confirm whether you personally owe any service charges, ground rent, insurance premiums, or other contributions. If you do owe anything, be honest and give brief details. This doesn't stop the sale, it just allows it to be dealt with properly during the transaction. Section 5 isn't about perfection, it's about transparency. Buyers want to understand how the building is managed, what it costs to run, and whether any major expenses are coming up. If you're unsure about any answer, it's completely fine to select Not Known and speak to your solicitor. Clear, honest answers here can prevent delays and help your sale move forward smoothly. Section 6 covers notices. This section asks whether you've received any formal notices. For example, a notice saying the landlord wants to sell the building, or notices about repairs, maintenance, or how the building is used. If you have received one, attach a copy if possible. If you haven't, simply tick no. Section 7 covers consents. This is about whether the landlord has ever given formal consent under the lease. For example, consent for alterations, or changes to the lease terms. If you're aware of anything like this, provide brief details or attach paperwork if you have it. Section 8 covers complaints. Here, you'll confirm whether you've received complaints from the landlord, management company, or neighbours, or whether you've raised complaints yourself. Even if something was resolved a while ago, it's best to mention it. Being open now helps avoid delays later. Section 9 covers alterations. This section asks whether any alterations have been made to the property since the lease was first granted. If the answer is no, you can skip straight to the next section. If yes, just explain what was changed and whether landlord consent was obtained. If consent was needed and you have paperwork, attach it. If you're unsure, don't guess, say not known. Section 10 covers enfranchisement. This sounds technical, but it's really just about lease extensions or buying the freehold. You'll be asked how long you've owned the property, whether you've served notice to extend the lease or buy the freehold, or whether you're aware of any collective purchase attempts. If none of this applies to you, that's completely normal. Just tick the relevant boxes and move on. Section 11 covers building safety and certificates. This section is all about building safety, and it was added because of changes in the law under the Building Safety Act 2022. If this section feels unfamiliar or a bit daunting, that's completely normal. A lot of sellers won't have dealt with this before. The key thing to remember is, you're being asked to confirm what you know and what paperwork exists, not to investigate or make assumptions. The first question asks whether any remediation works have been proposed or carried out on the building. Remediation works are repairs or improvements made to address building safety issues. For example, cladding removal or replacement, fire safety improvements, structural safety works. If you're aware of any works that have already happened or that are planned, tick yes and briefly explain what they were or what's been proposed. If you're not aware of any such works, tick no. Next, you'll be asked whether the lease is a qualifying lease. This relates to whether the leaseholder may be protected from certain building safety costs under the law. Many sellers won't know the answer to this, and that's okay. If you're unsure, select Not Known. Your solicitor can confirm this by reviewing the lease. The form then asks whether there is a leaseholder deed of certificate for the property. This is a legal document that confirms whether the leaseholder qualifies for building safety protections. If there is a deed of certificate, confirm whether it was completed by you as the current leaseholder or by a previous leaseholder. If you have a copy, attach it along with any supporting evidence. If you've never seen or completed one, it's absolutely fine to tick No or Not Known. Next, you'll be asked whether the freeholder or landlord has been notified that you intend to sell the property. In many cases, this will be done by your solicitor once the sale is underway, so don't worry if it hasn't happened yet. Just answer honestly based on what's been done so far. You'll then be asked whether you've received a landlord certificate. This is a document provided by the landlord or freeholder confirming certain building safety information. If you have received one, tick Yes and attach a copy along with any supporting evidence. If you haven't received one or you're not sure, simply select No or Not Applicable. Your solicitor can request this if it's needed. Section 11 exists to protect both buyers and sellers. It helps confirm whether building safety works are planned or completed, who is responsible for costs, and whether the leaseholder is protected under the law. Answering honestly, even if that means choosing Not Known, helps prevent delays later in the transaction. Finally, every seller must sign and date the TA7. Once that's done, the form is complete. Final tip, the most important thing to remember is this: be honest, don't guess, and use Not Known when you're unsure. The TA7 isn't about catching you out, it's about giving the buyer a clear picture of how the leasehold property works. And if you get stuck at any point, speak to your solicitor or your Quality Conveyancing support team. We're here to help. Thanks for watching Ask Quality Conveyancing. Follow for more simple property tips to keep your move stress-free.